what my real husband is. That's not what he's like at home. There's an inherently duality of the author that I think he even describes to his creative writing students kind of early on, where it's like, I'm letting my inner uninhibited ugly id out, who likes like drinking and killing and sex, but like the real outer shell version of me, I'm like this timid kind of loving professor husband. And it's this like split identity crisis that exhibits obviously in the work, and it gets kicked into a higher gear by a blackmailing fan attending one of his classes and threatening to expose him, something that I guess King felt obviously had happened to him when the beans got spilled on him being Richard Bachman. And in order to handle the kind of PR crisis, he decides to publicly, out himself. And that is where you get so many of those scenes where, you get a little bit of discomfort from Amy, I think, of being like, he starts doing the like magazine photo shoot and almost bragging about being George Stark. And, some of the, I write with this, with this hand, and it just kind of comes out. And he's describing the process like to that one journalist who he actually kind of creeps out during the conducting of the interview, because he describes the George Stark as like more of like, yeah, I kind of have like a violent schizophrenic episode, and then pages are written. It's not really a pen name. It's just like, it just leaks out of me, and I have a weird psychological crisis that happens.
Yeah. Which, to be honest, is probably, at least the first couple times they heard it, somewhat what the interviewers were probably feeling when Stephen King started to be more open about it. He's like, yeah, I wrote Cujo on cocaine, and I woke up and I had it written. I don't even remember writing Cujo. It's like,
it sounds like when Paul Schrader described doing drugs and just being like, and then, I was on uppers and downers, and I had a schedule to, snort this and then smoke that. And then, a week later, 6 screenplays were written, and I didn't know where they came from.
Yeah. And I gotta say, it's like, I don't dive into drugs really, but like the fucking, every once in a while I'll drink with my friends and stuff. We never wake up with a best-selling novel, and it is a shame.
Yeah, that'd be sick. What a gift.
Yeah, what a problem. Like, if that came from addiction, at least you got something out of it. Good Lord, that's an insane thing. Come out with 6 screenplays, a couple novels, just unbelievable. But I do like that, like her character, she does really wholeheartedly believe him right away. There is this like loyalty and trust that they have amongst each other, which I just enjoyed watching, because again, their performances are pretty good.
Timothy is also pretty good at letting evil George side of himself kind of very casually leak out sometimes, like that bit when he's changing his baby's diaper, like with her, and in cute baby voice, he's describing about how the hero of one of my George Stark books would probably go to that blackmailing fan and fucking cut his pecker off and stuff it down his throat so everyone knows he's a squealer. And you just get, and he's doing it in like a cute baby voice while playing with his kid, and you just see Amy Madigan being like, what the fuck?
What the fuck was that, dude? You can't just say anything in baby voice and get away with it. Yeah, it is a pretty dark moment. And again, he does play it still like he's not even realizing that he's doing it. So it kind of correlates to, or connects to his the way that he writes this character as well. Like he's not realizing it. It's on an autopilot. The only thing I don't necessarily love about the way, and it's not Amy Madigan's fault, it's the way it's written, but I don't like that the character I don't think she wrestles enough with him having this side of him. It's almost like it's a little too forgetful about this side eventually, and almost like it's like, this isn't truly you. We just have to defeat this part of you. I think it would be a little better if it was saying like, this is something you almost have to accept and wrestle with,
or
at
the very least confront that, like, your husband kind of likes this side of him. There is a moment where he does that at one point, where he's just like, yeah, I kind of did like egg this persona on, and I did kind of like this persona, and I wanted it to, I fed it, and I contributed to it, and it is something I kind of wish I was more like. And that's one of those things where that's one of the more like complicated character moments. And yeah, it would have been nice to see Amy kind of let in on that and be like, man, my husband has some like freakish fetishes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it does feel like once you get eventually to the battle between them, it's like this thing that must be overcome, and and that just implies that he doesn't have that inside him anymore. Like that part of his novel writing is just it's just he's destroying it completely, and it feels like that isn't an honest thing, and that is what kind of manifested this whole thing to begin with, you know. So it kind of a little bit. I might be overcomplicating it, but it almost feels like it contradicts itself a tiny bit in that regard.
Yeah, you would have thought that maybe there would have been a version of this where he had to learn to live with it in like a yin yang like type scenario, rather than necessarily being like, you know, letting himself off the hook and just being like, yeah, a good thing my evil twin has been murdered now.
Yeah, now I can go write the next great romantic epic or something.
Yeah,
I guess.
And which is funny too, because like it feels like the movie threatens to be like, to tell you it's not that easy. Like that's actually where the inciting incident of the movie is, right? Is that he stages like a fake funeral for George Stark, and as they write on his tombstone, not a very nice guy. And right. He does go, man, it's just eerie. It's like standing over my own grave in kind of a way. And they're taking these photos for like, I don't know, like Time magazine or whatever, where they're going to announce this, you know, this symbolic career death. And so it is interesting that they go, well, hold on. It's not that easy, man. You can't just disassociate from this side of yourself. And that results in the supernatural horror scenario of George Stark, like rising from the grave, basically like a zombie, and Timothy Hutton then having to do the dual performance, which is actually, I gotta say, a pretty impressive like dual performance of him switching between being the sensitive and sheepish like husband, and then when he goes fucking like badass murderous like Jim Thompson, like Richard Stark character, who is obviously who George Stark is named after as well, the crime.